Hey, it's a privilege to have you here, Fuse. Thank you for coming in.
I really appreciate you.
Not at all. I appreciate your time, sir. What are your problems with the lyrics?
I have a lot of problems with the lyrics because it doesn't represent the truth of what is in Africa and what was. Lyrics such as "There's no peace and joy in Africa this Christmas." Every December, I go to Ghana for Christmas, and millions of people come to Ghana for Christmas and actually enjoy themselves. So there's no truth in that. And another problem that I have with it is talk. It was a situation that was one country in crisis, but somehow the lyric encapsulated a whole continent, saying that there's no peace and joy in the whole of Africa this Christmas. And I always liken it to the fact that, Ukraine is in crisis right now, but would we make a song saying there's no peace and joy in Europe this Christmas? So I feel like that in many folds, it depicts a truth that's not really true.
What is the true face of Africa now?
The true face of Africa is a place of opportunities and investment, a place where you can have a great time, a place where you can genuinely have a holiday and take your family to. But I feel like the perception of Africa does not portray that due to what the mainstream media portrays. And I feel like it's now time to really tell the truth of what is in Africa, which is a place where you don't have to just give £2 and get on with your life. You can actually go and spend 2,000, in a week.
You were asked to take part in Band Aid 30 10 years ago. Obviously, you declined. It was for those reasons. Was it Bob Geldof who asked you? How did it work out?
He actually phoned me and he asked me to be a part of it. And straight away, I let him know that, I love the idea of actually raising for the current crisis, which was the Ebola crisis at the time. But I just said to him that, especially, giving is good. And I love that the British public love to give when it's time when there's a crisis. But what I pointed out to him was that it's the model, it's the way that it's been executed. There's a way that we can raise money for the people in crisis without taking away their dignity, their pride, their identity. We can raise it in a dignified way. Same way we've done for Ukraine. We've raised 200 billion for Ukraine in a dignified way. The same can be done. So when I did express at the time, he said he's been doing this for over 30 years and he's not about to change it now for anyone. So I did actually come with the alternative. We can change the lyrics because I'm going there this Christmas. And with the caliber of artists that are on this song, surely we can make a song that can uplift in order to support these people, because we were all in the top 10 at the time. So it wasn't really about the lyrics.
How did he respond, Fuse?
He just said it's not about to change now.
But it was friendly, though, was it?
It was friendly in the sense that, but it was very it's just straightforward. I said I made a suggestion because I genuinely feel like if you want to help somebody in crisis, the best person to listen to are the people going through it.
Sure.
Right. So I felt like when I gave them that kind of angle where we can actually raise and still, maintain the dignity of the people, because if you remember when they even launched Band Aid on ITV, on X Factor, there was a dead body being dragged, a dead body of an African being dragged across our television. And I felt like there's just a way better, there's a much better way to do things without having to take away the dignity of a whole continent.
But 40 years ago, and I know you weren't even on this planet then, but 40 years ago, you did actually say you wanted to know what Africa was. I mean, parts of Africa 40 years ago were in desperate need of help, weren't they?
Parts of Africa were in desperate need of help. Parts of Europe were definitely in need of help too. Again, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
There's no problem with raising money for a crisis. In the short term, it makes sense. On surface level, it makes sense. But in the long run, and I'm speaking as a child of who grew up in an era where these images of, Band Aid and initiatives like it have been on our screens for years, it really affected me as an African living in the UK.
In what way did it affect you?
Where I was not proud of who I was, who I am. I wanted to disconnect with being African, because whenever anything that was related to Africa would come, all my friends in school would be laughing. Do you get it? So that imagine your child going to school and being embarrassed of who they are because of how the media has portrayed them. So for me, it's like the way it's affected me and everybody, from my generation. I just want to create a better world from my child.
Yeah.
Growing up in the UK or growing up outside of Africa, I want them, because there's such an imbalanced view of the world. I just want my child to grow up in a world where they can feel proud of who they are and just be themselves.
So what should the future of Band-Aid be now?
I think he needs to. It's been 40 years.
Yeah.
Right.
40 years on
For
the 25th.
any business person, after 40 years, you have, and if you're not seeing results, because I haven't seen any results, if I'm being honest, like, he needs to relook at the model.
You don't think it's done good?
I think it's done more bad than good.
Band-Aid has done more bad than good,
More
Fuse.
bad than good, because
it's raised tens of millions of pounds.
and it's also cost us in trillions.
How's it cost you in trillions?
So, okay,
Has it cost Africa in
I'll
trillions?
give one example.
Please, yeah.
I'll give one example.
Yeah.
Because of the image, the negative images that's been portrayed of the continent, Africa is seen as a high-risk profile. And as a result of that, we get high interest rate on our sovereign debts, right? It's costing us 3.2 billion every year.
Okay.
Right, and you're saying Band-Aid raised millions. That's one example.
Yeah.
Another example is I partnered with the Ghana government for this initiative called the Year of Return that enables people to come to Ghana and just enjoy Africa firsthand. Right, we managed to raise in that year 1.9 billion for the economy.
Wow.
Right, before that we were giving out 45,000 visas. During that we gave out 750,000 visas. Now imagine this scaled across the continent, and all the countries in Africa position themselves like that. So that's potential revenue that we've lost over the years. And when you work that out, it's about 100 billion per year. You get it? So we've lost in trillions. That's the second example. The example that really just destroys me is my child growing up in this world and not feeling proud of who they are. Them losing their sense of pride and identity because of these kind of images.
Will your child be British African or African British? What would she identify as first, do you think?
Identify as a human being.
Right, but are they African or are they? What would you want them to be?
I want my child to be African because that's who I am. But I want same way. If you're from Ireland or if you're Swedish, you just want your child to represent who they are. Right, and that's the kind of world. And I feel like being in England, that's how it's supposed to be, different cultures, but embracing the different cultures. And I think what Africa has really been suffering over this side of the world is that the lack of representation. Us not showing that. I'll give a perfect example. The Ebola crisis, Band-Aid raised money for the Ebola crisis, but what Band-Aid forgot to mention was that the Ebola crisis was solved by an African from Congo called Dr. Jean-Jacques Moyembe, right? So there's like an imbalance of how Africa is portrayed, and I feel like it's now time to really we need to counterbalance that, and we've been doing that with an educational app that we've built called School of New Africa, and it's meant to tell the stories of Africa's contribution to the world.
Where is the School of New Africa?
It's on the App Store. You can just go and download it now. It's an app that teaches Black history in a gamified way, and we're really focusing on the next generation and really building them up, because when my child steps out, I know the world would have a certain view of them. Our mission is to counterbalance that. Is to just put out the Africa that we know, the truth that we know, the powerful people that have come before us. Because I feel like there's such an imbalance that my child would feel inferior whenever they step outside the house. So I want to balance that with this app that we've launched.
How significant was Ed Sheeran's intervention in this, Fuse?
It was super significant, and I think it's the perfect example of how we should be as human beings. And I feel like a lot of people have kind of expressed that they kind of feel guilty for giving, because I've given a perspective where I'm saying that we've lost in tourism, we've lost in investment, we've lost in trade opportunities, but you gave money to help. And
people were buying it for all the right reasons, don't you? They weren't buying it because they wanted to keep Africa repressed.
This is why I'm giving an example of Ed, because Ed was part of the 2014 one, and he did it with the greatest intention. Right? When I spoke to him and I gave him the perspective from my side on the effect they had on my generation, and how we need to just change the way that we give, he understood where I was coming from.
Did he get it straight away?
He understood it straight away, and he was like, we had the conversation, and the idea was like, if anybody's going through a crisis, just listen to them and ask them how. Don't just say, this is what you need. We speak, we have a conversation, we have a dialogue. It shouldn't be just a monologue, just you just saying, this is what you need. It's about us having a dialogue and actually finding a way forward, and it becoming a partnership. And I always say it needs to be solidarity over charity.
Okay, coming to the last minute or so together. So when next week Band-Aid 40 is released, should people not download it and buy it? What should people do? Not
this version, because...
Even though it would raise money for charities in Africa.
And I've also...
I hear your arguments.
I've also reiterated the long-term effect of what it's gonna have on us. If anything, stream the song that I'm putting out. We know it's Christmas because it talks about the progress, and it celebrates a culture, and the proceeds of that will go to initiatives that are developing projects, innovative projects that are helping with the development of the continent.
How disappointed are you that Bob Geldof and others haven't listened to your message, Fuse?
It's frustrating. It's frustrating more than anything else, because I get it. The intentions were there in the beginning, but 40 years later, we are the grown children of the people that you were helping, and we're telling you that it did not help us in the way that you thought it was going to help us. We lost in the end. So let's find a way to move forward.
I'm going to play a little bit of your We Know It's Christmas in just a second. Before I play that, well, first I want to thank you. Secondly, if ever I take holiday, I mean, you've got to come in. You can just... Man, can he talk. I'm looking at his manager over there. Isn't it? Holy...
I don't think I could talk more than you, don't I?
I think you can. So when I said to the producer, he said, oh, no, she said, yeah. I said, well, I could have just gone down the pub. I mean, just left it to Fuse. Okay, introduce it.
I'm on Nick Ferrari's show, man. Come on, man. It's a pleasure to be here today.
No, the pleasure is all mine.